St. Lawrence was bursting at the seams and built a spacious new sanctuary. Unfortunately, due to the financial crisis of 2008 and resulting changes in demographics, the mortgage from that expansion became an obstacle to adequately funding staff, programs, and ministries. We have spent the last few years in deliberate, honest conversation exploring our options. After much research, education, and discussion, the congregation reached a strong consensus about our present challenges, which include creating a financially healthy, sustainable future for St. Lawrence and our ministries, a process that may require us to leave our central location, and how to take God's message outside our doors to the surrounding community. These were some of the first words I read about you back when I was still living in California and you were in the process of searching for your next rector. What I just read is an excerpt from your parish profile. Remember that? That document that you created, in essence, to market yourselves to potential new rectors. And it was these words that piqued my interest and made your profile stand out among the many, many profiles I was reading at the time. And here we go. A process that may require us to leave our central location, in your own words, is not a process that most parishes have undertaken or would undertake willingly. Though it's safe to say that given current demographic trends, more and more churches will need to start walking this path. And yet, you did it courageously. Even amidst the financial uncertainty that plagued you, you were crystal clear on one thing, that St. Lawrence is more than its building, and that the church is about people more than this physical sanctuary. And buoyed by that knowledge, you were willing to risk everything. And you discovered that sometimes, when we're willing to relinquish our hold on what we hold most dear, the tables turn, and we aren't, to our great surprise, allowed to keep it. In our first reading this morning, King David and the prophet Nathan grapple with much the same question that St. Lawrence has wrestled with for the last few years. Is it necessary to have a physical, established worship space to worship God? David reasons that, well, it certainly can't hurt. After all, he lives in a house of cedar, so why should God be housed in a traveling tent? Well, it turns out God has very good reasons for not wanting a house. The story of the people of Israel from this chapter we read today up until the time of the Gospels is a story of repeated destruction and loss when it comes to the Jerusalem temple. God's house, which isn't actually built by David, but by his son Solomon, is destroyed by invading forces not once, but twice. Holy buildings, as we know all too well, may be beautiful, but they can also cause a whole lot of heartbreak. So what are we to do? As the people of Israel knew from experience, lugging a heavy ark of the covenant around for generations is tiresome. As we know from experience, the task of leaving a church building can, in its own ways, be more complicated, to say nothing of more terrifying, than simply staying put. Now, it feels important to point out that buildings are not evil. God does eventually deign to live in a splendid, majestic, beautiful temple, and that was well and good. But God is so much more than a building, and God can be worshipped anywhere. So how can we, yoked as we once again are to this beautiful, beloved, complicated building, capture some of the freedom that is our birthright as followers of an unboxable God? Begins, I think, with remembering. Yes, we are extremely relieved to have been able to close the door on our very long, very anxious chapter of financial uncertainty, just as the Israelites were surely very relieved when their time of wandering through the wilderness came to an end. Removing this building from the market was deeply joyful. So was paying off the first mortgage note. It will be deeply joyful when we pay off the second. But just because we are no longer living under the shadow of crippling debt and uncertainty does not mean that the story never happened. We don't get to erase that chapter from our history. And what's more, we shouldn't want to. Because those years taught us some vital truths about who we are, about who God is, and what this thing called church is really about. So I'm going to do something, oh, she knows. I'm going to do something that I rarely do from this pulpit, and I'm going to ask you to turn to your neighbor. I know, be brave, you can do it. Turn to your neighbor for just a moment and discuss something. It's short. Your prompt is, what do you think is the most important thing we do in this building? Just 90 seconds, go. Find a neighbor, you don't even need to know them. Ask their name, that's great. The most important thing we do in this building. And that process that may require us to leave our central location Oh, it certainly will. Just not in the way you thought when you wrote this statement. We are still called to take God's message outside our doors to the surrounding community and to keep those doors open. Not so that we can come in, but so that we can go out again. God is not contained by these walls, friends, and therefore, neither are we. Amen.
Amen.